Rendering.
The last kink up.
The last kink.
The last kink up 2022.
I just had a flashback to one of my favorite Simpsons episodes where Gary Coleman was the guest, and they have the end of the show. He said, "What you talk about, Homer? What you talk about, everyone." And welcome back. Welcome to Pencil to Pencil. That's right. We're back, you guys. Your weekly pandemic podcast brought to you every week at 8 p.m. EST on a Wednesday by Menon. And it looks like you have a growth appearing on your neck, Mike Manley. What's that about?
A purple growth. I need to have it removed by deadline tonight.
That's right. You need to get that checked, my man. You got a bad case of the phantom.
Yeah, I actually do right now. I need to get the strips in. They should have been in today, but today was a busy day. So
yeah, facts. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We are going to celebrate the end of a very long yet fast year. Right? I think everybody can kind of agree with that. Like this year like flew by, but at the same time it felt real long. And since I'm in the catbird seat, I wish I knew what that meant. I never understood what the catbird seat meant. I will start the proceedings. My name is Jamar Nicholas, Philadelphia's favorite son, and I go by many names. I wear many hats. I'll just keep it simple tonight. I need a good one. Johnny Carson, your jocular co-host. Well, hello. That's wild stuff.
John Kuehler.
That sounds like I'll be in the clinic with you, waiting to get.
That's right. Yeah,
while you're getting your purple thing checked out.
Looked at.
Yeah, let's get some John Kuehler. Let me introduce the rest of these cats who are going to be joining us tonight. He is the full bird colonel of comic book illustration, El Generalissimo, Michael Manley. Michael Manley, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I just took a little power nap right before the podcast.
Oh, I could have used one of those, bro. That's real.
Yeah. I think and today is the solstice.
They say it's the shortest day of the year. That's what it is.
That's why it is. That's why it's the Traducan of the year.
Our good pal Shelley, Reed Dick Tracy, says all nighter ahead for both of us syndicate scrawlers. Look at that. It's a very
every cartoonist is working for King Features or I'm sure everybody their mailbox is gonna be jammed tomorrow morning when they wake up. Like,
that's right. Man. You better pay for more storage in your Google FTP thing.
So this is a major deadline, and it's the shortest day of the year.
Yeah, isn't that how it works?
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. Yeah,
fantastic.
Well, we lucked out because they're leaving Friday, but that Christmas week, holiday weeks are tough for cartoonists because you have a shorter week.
That's very true. And hold on, let me get Steve in before we start our chatter. And I would be remiss if I did not introduce one of the highlights of 2022, our newest co-host, world champion of webcomics, Stone Cold, Steve Conley. How are you, sir?
Hello, guys. I come here just for that. That's all I need. That's my tonic.
By God, he's broken in half. Stone Cold.
I have a folding chair here. I thought if Pat Olaf last week had said anything untoward, I was gonna bust that on him.
You gotta cut your forehead with a razor blade.
he's gonna catch it. I love it. Steve Conley, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what we have planned for tonight? It's a very special episode.
So tonight we don't have a guest. This is our last episode, as it's been said, the last episode of the year. And we're going to look back on 2022. We've had a ton of great guests. There's been a ton of news in comics. We've got a lot of topics to cover. We're going to try to get through it in a zippy fashion as best we can.
Mhm.
We like to meander. But we'd love to hear from the Penciliers. What do you think are the big events of 2022? What do you remember? What were you working on? What were the projects that the best graphic novel you found? What was the one that what was the project you're most proud of? And other memories of 2022. And we're going to talk about a few of the things that happened last year. And we're excited to hear what you say.
Surprise!
Surprise.
But hold on. This is interesting. Notorious JRD says the gray catbird would often sit high on a perch above all else and make mocking calls. Baseball announcer Red Barber used catbird seat to mean sitting pretty or in a position of power. That's very interesting. Why didn't I just ask JRD?
Yeah, you should have just asked JRD.
Pencil to Pencil wiki.
That's right. JRD is the living wiki, like the living tribunal.
That's right.
I love it. The living wiki. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting. I thought if we had an intern, we'd do a clip show, but we don't have that in the budget. So we're just going to kind of talk through some of the maybe like high or maybe low lights of the year. One thing I'd love to share with all the Penciliers is that we got through this year together, y'all, sharing the love of creativity and art in community. I think this was probably one of the best years for Pencil to Pencil, and I think that it's a necessary evil that we're here and invading your homes on Wednesdays. So like Steve said, if as we go through the episode, we're going to kind of touch on some bullet points and some talking points for the year. But in the chat, if you're watching us live, why don't you share some things that some remembrances of? Wait, where'd Mike go? Some remembrances of 2022. Maybe some of the coolest things that came down the pike for you. Maybe it was the debut of Leon the Extraordinary by Jamar Nicholas. Maybe that was one of your favorite things.
My props. I can't get my props. I got too much.
Steve. There you go. Maybe you backed Steve Conley's Kickstarter and probably got your stuff already because Steve's good like that. Maybe you found a really great new artist that you followed, or you got a cool graphic novel at your LCS local comic shop that you can't stop talking about. So, talk amongst yourselves. While we're talking, Steve and I will be picking things out to share later. So I think we're just going to kind of talk through stuff, and then at the end we'll do the Penciliers talk and we'll put some stuff on the screen. All right.
Absolutely. That sounds great. We'll wait for Mike to come back with one of these things, but let's just jump into something. I know Mike didn't go to any conventions this year, but a big deal of 2022 is that comic conventions returned after a 2-year hiatus. There was a little bit in 2021. A few shows came back, dipping their toe back in the water. But last year was, or this year was. The conventions were back. It was crazy. It felt weird. I was freaked out. I was a homebody for solid 18 months. Surgical strikes to the supermarket and back to my inside my house. And I don't know. It was weird for me to be out among people again, but it was great. I was happy to be behind a table.
Yeah.
But it was great to see everybody again. It really felt like the world was coming back.
Yeah. And I recall Steve Conley, like 2020 was just like a flat line, scorched earth year. Everybody says 2020 was just, let's please just get through it. And then 2021 seemed like things started to loosen up, but people just weren't ready yet. It's too soon, right. Some people said. And because I know they did New York Comic Con in 2021, and it was like, people went, people didn't go. I remember this even kind of spilled into this year. There was a pretty vocal minority of other comic creators who were like, you couldn't pay me to go to a comic book convention.
Sure.
And there's still some people that feel that way,
Right.
but I do feel like 2022 was a year that the con came back, like you said.
Yeah, in October of 2021, you still couldn't kids weren't getting vaccinated. So, like Baltimore Comic Con happened in 2021, but where were the kids? They could get in if they had a test, but again, who wants? Parents wouldn't necessarily want to put their kids, get them tested just for the sake of going to a convention. That's adding a huge hurdle on top of a show's ticket price.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that hasn't changed. Stuff is still expensive, But yeah, I think that was. Mike just said his Wi-Fi gave up the ghost, but he'll be back.
Okay.
But yeah. So, and Steve, how many conventions did you go, or how many? I mean, you don't have to give me a number, but like you kind of got back on the road this year, didn't you?
Maybe 7 or 8 shows.
Wow, you did that. You did that many?
Yeah, a lot of little tiny shows, like a small convention here and there. I'd like to do local events. That's something I always talk to young cartoonists about. Do local shows because there's little cost, and you want to build a community. You want to plant roots. If you're a local community, people there are going to be so excited to know that there's a cartoonist who lives not too far away. All that stuff makes comics and creating comics feel more possible if you don't have to live in New York to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and even for me, because I've been kind of changing my algorithm over the past couple of years. So doing comic book conventions was kind of like I had to kind of remember how to act, how to go back to that. You know what I'm saying? And what did I do? I think I just did Baltimore this year. Did I do any other? Oh no, Bill says, and it's already. I don't remember. It felt like so long ago. Yeah, we did Fan Expo Philly, and Mike, because our buddy Mike Hawthorne was there, and we did a live podcast on the show floor, and I wasn't set up, but I came to do the thing with Hawthorne, but Hawthorne was set up. And then also I did Baltimore Comic Con not too long ago. That was kind of it for me as far as conventions were concerned.
But you had a lot of other appearances, right? I mean, so many. You were for the entire month of October. You were almost the entire month of October. You were on the road.
Yeah, I was on the road almost the entirety of October, and before that, I had jaunts, Steve Conley, which were more like conferences. Like I wouldn't call them the comic book conventions. Like I had like library conferences, and like I was in Texas twice. One was for the Texas Library Association, and then there was like the Texas Book Festival, and like all that kind of stuff in concert with the traditional book publishing industry. So there's even like a different dance meter to how those shows run versus a comic book convention. So that's why I wouldn't necessarily call it a con, in the same way. Yeah, Bill calls it book con. It was kind of how it was. But we were out and about, and you could see a lot of excitement. People were just happy to, as the kids say right now, Steve, I don't know if you heard this, yo, we outside. Think about people being inside so long, to just be outside is exciting.
Yeah.
We're outside. Sure. It's wild. So Steve, any really cool points about kind of getting back on the show floor? Anything that changed for you? Anything you forgot? Like, oh damn it, I forgot my square. Anything like that?
It wasn't that. It was more like in 2021 when I went back, I didn't want to handle money. I didn't want to touch dirty, filthy money. I was like,
baby Finster.
Steve Conley, shaving at your age.
There he is.
My Wi-Fi kicked out, so I'm coming over my cell phone.
Oh, okay. All
that
right.
camera is amazing, Mike. That's like the best camera you've been on. That's
my iPhone.
Look at that. You're lucky. You're in HD. I love it.
But we jumped over to talk about comic conventions first, Mike, because I know you were sitting them out this year. So we were talking about those.
and I might be sitting them out next year, depending upon what goes on.
Yeah, so then there's one of our opposing voices right there, because Mike, we were talking about how there are a lot of people who weren't so excited to go back to con life, and I know you and there's other people like that are just like, yeah, you couldn't pay me to go back to a comic book convention.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people who are have health conditions or live with people who are immunocompromised, and we keep going through these like we are right now. We're having the Thanksgiving rise.
Oh man, I thought he was like doing a dramatic pause.
Yeah, I thought that was full Shatner.
Oh man, yeah, his Wi-Fi's really acting up.
Yeah.
I'm sure whatever you was going to say was very succinct. Ronaldo says it's like Manley stepped in the eyes and now. Well, how bad was his camera before? It wasn't that bad.
It was the color was usually washed out. That was like it was really vibrant suddenly, especially that shirt of his. It was great.
And you were there, and Uncle Joe, you were there.
JRD was there.
JRD was there. Bill O'Donnell, you were there too. Mike, you back?
Am I still gone?
No, I can see your chin. Yeah,
you're back. You had a dramatic pause.
There you go.
Oh,
yeah.
I guess I was saying that I would I'd have to think about that, because I'm not sure whether I would go, oh, maybe I'm back on the I think I'm back on the other. We can have two Mike Manleys.
All right. Well, do you want to switch? You look good here, so let's just stay.
Okay. All right. And after my own bad health year issues, I don't know. Yeah. I also know the thing is, a lot of people live with other people who are immunocompromised, might have kids that are immunocompromised, wife or mother-in-law. And so it's not just you. And it's like, I remember after San Diego, you kept reading all these people. Wow, I just took my test. Phew,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was something I had a little beef with that, and I got COVID at San Diego. I even said this. I don't think I got it at San Diego. I got it on the airplane going to San Diego. But one thing that really struck me as not great was, as I called it, this was the summer of unsolicited stick pics, when all of a sudden everybody puts their COVID test on Facebook, and they're like, didn't get me, or like, oh, they got me. And I was just like, yo, I don't think I need to know that information in that fashion. So I started calling it unsolicited stick pics. Like, I didn't ask to see your COVID test.
That's hot. Swipe left for my COVID pics.
Oh, yo, 2 stripes. So, but yeah, I mean, that. I know, as far as I'm concerned, that some of the travel that I did was super necessary, and we say this all the time. We try to protect ourselves as much as we can. So I think we're in a different stratosphere as far as what that means now. But I was on high alert the whole time I was out on the road. I still am. And it seems like the chat is enjoying this conversation. And also, for people who aren't the three of us, people are really excited to kind of go back out into the world again and spend money.
Yeah, that was definitely a new thing. When I came back to some of these shows, they were very sparsely attended, but the people who came wanted to spend money. I think people were itching to get stuff. So it was a great. The conventions have been great, and the excitement's great, and I think as long as people keep playing it a little bit safe, be a little more cautious. I'm hoping we don't go back to just being reckless. But
here's something funny that kind of changed for me, because I'd been so out of the loop with setting up for a show. I was woefully like, we did enough of these things that you kind of had your rig. You always had that bag in the corner of your studio that had all your stuff in it. Like I was
Sure.
starting over. I'm like, what did I bring? Should I bring my marker? Where's my square? Like where are my little stand-up things for the books? Like I don't know where anything is now. And but one thing I found was interesting as far as money is concerned is all of a sudden people weren't super interested in paying with Square. A lot of people wanted to use Cash App or Venmo or things like that, which I thought was different. That kind of was something that came out of COVID, I think.
Right,
Like
right.
like the small, I don't know how you call it, like kind of like micro transactioning. Like, I split a cheesesteak and I just sent Mike $4 to his Venmo. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So people will come up to your table and go, "Yo, you take Cash App?" I'm like, "Well, I do, but I get, you know what I mean? I wasn't ready for that."
They want to take out their card and like, bling.
Yeah,
A lot more Apple Pay too.
yeah, a
Like,
lot. Yeah, somebody
thankfully
put their-
that
Go. I'm sorry, excuse me.
I'm sorry. No, thankfully that those card readers, like if you get one of those card readers that can accept a chip and the little swipe, amazing. They couldn't
Yeah.
have these things couldn't have arrived at a better time.
That's the new hit because I had picked one of those up before COVID and I never used it. And I was like, well, at least I have it. But now everybody taps.
Hmm.
Everybody taps. Nobody's dipping. You tap it. Somebody put their watch up to it. They're like,
Right.
here you go, and it works. It's crazy. So yeah, so cons are back. Um, and I just feel like that's going to keep. I don't know. I guess that'll keep going. We also saw, which I thought was interesting, before COVID. It seemed like there were too many cons. I don't know if you guys remember talking about that. It's kind of like everybody and their mother had a comic book convention, and then
Right.
kind of COVID kind of like washed a lot of that away. And I feel bad for people who lost their shirts. And there was a big case, and I don't want to speak on it because we're in public, but these guys who were doing a show out in Philly, and they were like one of the first people to kind of get their thing canceled when the lockdown happened, and they were like, "Who knew there was going to be a pandemic? We don't really have your money to give you a refund because we had to pay for the convention center," and people didn't want to hear that, and they like ran them out of town. And it was a mess, and I felt bad for them. It's like, who thought we'd have a global pandemic on the 30th when I'm about to have a comic book convention?
Right.
So,
And
but
it was weird because a lot of conventions were like waiting for the city to cancel it, because if the city cancels the event, then it's not their fault. The convention center can't blame them and come after, or the hotel can't blame them and come after them for all the
Right.
money.
Well, they call that the act of God insurance.
yeah,
Exactly. But if you did it yourself, if you decided I'll be responsible and not have this event, you're going to be responsible.
yeah,
You're responsible for everybody else who's not responsible.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a nice little box to check off for a wrap up show. What else you got? What else you got, Steve Conley?
There's a little downer. I don't want to jump on that one just yet. Let's keep it
Keep it
bright.
brisk, keep it light.
This isn't going to help though.
Okay.
Industry news of 2022.
Oh, Mike, would you like to do the honors?
As I look at this list, it's like, oh no. I think 2022 is pretty great. I have a very rosy perspective on it, but this list is, at least the titles are a little foreboding.
I think Mike was rubbing his hind legs together for this.
Well, I mean, when is it not a good year? When is it not a bad year for comics? What, 1994 or something?
Jeez.
I mean, it's always on some level since the mid 90s, when that was the last era of people buying a lot of books in stores. The kids would come up to you in the convention and bring their collections for collections to sign. I mean, but historically, if you are a student of the industry, it's not as good as the 90s, but not as bad as the 50s. because there was a lot of people in the 50s who got out of comics and never came back.
Hmm.
You know, right after the whole, you know, House Un-Americans Activity Committee. In fact, I was looking at pictures yesterday. They used to have drives to burn comic books, the evil comic books, you know. And there were a lot of guys that got out of. Jack Kirby was trying to get out. They were all trying to get into do strips.
Right.
Sky Masters, you remember?
Sure.
And there was a lot of people of that era who got out of comics and went into advertising, and he never came back. So the difference is that in the 50s, when the industry went in the toilet, there was no internet. There was no. There were no other venues for you to try to sell your wares. You know. So, yeah, I mean, it's not surprising when we hear about companies going belly up. It also reminds me of the 80s because I worked for First and they went belly up, and because they were bought by, I think, by Now, and they went belly up. And I have two close friends who were owed, one of them was owed about $14,000-$15,000 when they went belly. So my rule has always been, if I'm working on the second issue and the first issue I haven't been paid, I don't turn in the second issue. I don't ever let anybody get 2 issues into me, owing me, because that tells me right away that they're having cash flow, and no one survives cash flow issues in comic books. You know, they always say, "Oh, we're going to restructure." I can't think of one company that suffered cash flow issues and then came back.
And that was the news this week that Aftershock has put Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And so we saw a lot of names on that list for creditors, millions of dollars in that they owe. It's gotta, they're trying to put a positive spin on it. Like, hey, this is, you know, this is unfortunate, but necessary to keep going. So I know that your take is that that's portends
That's
no future.
That's a wrap. Because if I was working for them, why would I want to? If they owed me 2 or 3 issues, and I know there are some people that are owed at least that, if not more, why would I want to dig the hole deeper? Right. In fact, somebody was having a private conversation with someone who was relaying to me some details of their business with them, and it just sounds like hopefully they'll come back and be able to pay everybody, but I just know from my experience with what happened with First and what happened with Now that is usually not the case.
What about, I thought about CrossGen too, for any of us.
Yeah.
Us middle schoolers who remember CrossGen, because people moved across the country to go work at that fortress, and then everything went belly up pretty quickly. So
yeah,
but I think one of the interesting things about this, because somebody could say, well, why would anybody want to even work for some new company? And I think one of the things that has always stood out about comic books and comic book creators is that you just never know, right? And I think everybody goes into things thinking, well, maybe this time it'll work out, or maybe this guy has figured out how to solve the Rubik's Cube.
No.
Well, it's also, but I do get it though. Like you have this idea, you want to get it published. You don't want to be the publisher. You don't want to outlay all that money. So you're going to give them the risk.
There you go. There you go.
And that they just, but I don't know. There's got to be a path for people who don't feel entrepreneurial, right? There's got to be there should be a path for people who don't want to box up their comics and mail it to everybody. I'm looking at a huge pile of boxes to my immediate right.
Yeah, but it's always the bunker. Any bunker? No. Like I remember when they were going, and I was hearing about what they were doing, and I'm like, no way. And 5 years in, and you're successful? Maybe,
Gotcha.
right? But I would not be packing off to Florida or Timbuktu or any other place. I was talking to some guy about doing something like that. Nope. Sorry. You've got to and what is your burn rate? What is your burn rate? And
Right.
launching 30 new books, do 3 books. If they sell well, then do another 3 books. But everybody wants to build this universe, and they want to have all this, in the 90s, in the mid 90s was really, if you think about it, the last time you had enough numbers of people going into comic book stores that maybe that would have happened, right? Image was really the last successful big company, and they launched when there was still that big mass of readers and masses of people in the direct market, which continues to decline, even though people buy a lot of comics. They're not buying the same kind of comics that the guy that would buying Captain America in 1994 are buying. It's like all the young, what Jamar's doing, right? I mean, that's a giant growth market. All the webtoons and all that. I mean, there's millions of people who love comics. It's just that old direct market model is just, it's not working. It's not. I don't.
Fakakta is what the kids say.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I feel sorry. I mean, I only got burned once, as I said the other day on my Facebook. I got burned once with a guy, 2010. He sent me my check for the first issue of The Martians Go Home, and then his company went belly up. The check bounced, and it was a big, giant hole. And I always had some reservations, but he agreed to pay what I wanted to pay. He'd been doing stuff for a while, but he always have that, that I do. For me, the wolf is always, if not at the door, he's sitting on the front porch, or he's sitting on the lawn. And every once in a while he looks back, right, to see if the door is open. I just, the history of comic books is people getting taken. That's, you look at the greatest cartoonists that we've ever produced got taken, over and over again, some of them,
Mike, this isn't fun. What about my funny books?
I just think you have to be a student. You have to be astute as a professional. You should be, for your own benefit and protection, a student of the history of business. And then you have to understand business, because like Steve was saying, maybe you don't want to box up your comic, send it out, right? But then you got to make sure the guy who is boxing up the comic and sending it out is not doing something untoward, or is a bad businessman, or is, burning through his crazy mad money pile,
or he's doing the 1 for you, 1, 2 for me,
right? Yeah,
2 for you, 1, 2, 3 for me.
Exactly. And there's a lot of, like, every kind of story like that in comics. And I always said the smartest people in comics were people like Joe Kubert and Will Eisner and Neil Adams, because they put themselves in a position of being able to still do comics, still be passionate about the comics they did, but they did not have to rely upon working for somebody else to do those comics.
Well, despite all my rage, James, I'm still just a rat in a cage.
Well, the other issue I thought about, we talked about for 2022, wasn't just all the direct market. We also had all these streaming services come up, and they're all raising their prices like crazy right now. I found myself canceling most of them at the moment. I'm not sure where
really?
it's going to land. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going to land. I think my sense is I'm going to take that $8 I was given to Disney Plus and find 8 Patreons, and give them each $1. I think that might be for me. I think my brain will feel better. I'd rather have other people creating new content than someone else. That's not to say once the next Mandalorian isn't wrapped up, I won't sign up for a month and watch it and then and then drop it. But I think I'm going to dip in and out of these things. I'm not going to be just. They just can't take it off my card every month.
What about the change in the waters about, like, say, Netflix canceling shows and dropping animation, and that Batgirl show that never saw the light of day and all that
It
kind
was
of
sort
stuff?
of inevitable, I think.
Yeah.
I remember talking to my assistants, who this was a couple of years ago when they were still here working, and this is when Netflix was announcing that they were like spending $17 billion, and they were doing all this stuff, and everybody's hopping in, and they're all going to fight to see who's going to be number 2 after Disney. And I said, the pendulum does this, and then the pendulum does that, right? It goes up and it goes down. And right now in animation, which was saving them during the pandemic, because you could still make cartoons, but you couldn't make live action. All these companies are so heavily leveraged that, and you always fire the artist first, right? Brad Pitt still gets he's still going to get his deal, but it might be another 2 or 3 years before we crawl back out of that hole, and people settle down with what the streaming wars, right? Because everybody was putting all that money in, and you know what? Most of the shows are kind of crap, right? I mean, there's more shows than anyone can watch, but how many shows that you paid for? Like Steve said, how many shows did you pay for? Streaming services, did you go like, wow, I saw 20 awesome programs this year. I saw 20, I'm still catching up, right? I don't think that's the case. Unfortunately, for this current generation of young people coming out of school, it's going to be tougher. But again, historically, if I talk to older people in animation, they go, that's how it used to be. Before Cartoon Network, before Nickelodeon, before all that, the rise of, all that, it used to be much more seasonal. They would go up, you get a job, and it would go down, and you'd be laid off, and everybody would be scrambling to find more money. But starting in the 90s, when The Lion King came out and they was making all that money, it was a growth business. Pixar came along. It was growing. But every company becomes more heavily leveraged because they're always expanding. What does Disney own? Like everything, right? ESPN, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel. Well, look at what happened at Warner. Right. Look what happened at Warner Brothers. They own they kept merging with AOL and then Time Warner, and then they kept buying stuff. Now they're owned by Discovery, and they're $3.5 billion in debt. And they go, well, the only way we can figure out how to get some tax write-offs is to cancel these shows and to put stuff in the vault so we can't show it, and then we can say it's a tax write-off. So that's what happened with Batgirl. Right? And it has nothing to do with your individual performance as an artist or as a creator. But if the company is bleeding, and the one way they can go, well, we can patch this hole with this artist right there. There we go. It's something that when I was teaching, I would always try to tell to young artists that those are the things that you have to be aware of in the industry that you work in, because they affect your livelihood. right? It might not be how well you draw. It might be not how, it could be a fantastic cartoon, or you could be doing your best work of your career. But somebody upstairs goes, some bean counter goes, well, the only way we can solve our immediate cash flow problem and make our stockholders happy is to fire all these people in this division. Anybody making over $5 an hour, you know?
Right.
Mhm.
But on the slightly positive side, I would say crowdfunding in 2022 has continued to grow. I would say we've got all this Kickstarters. BackerKit launched their own crowdfunding platform. What's the other one? Zeusk? Is that the one?
Zeusk? I haven't
Is
even
that
heard of Zeusk.
I could be just making a sound.
Are they from
It's-
like are they from like Mount Olympus?
Blur, Furf dot whatever. Just a ton of them, and it's fantastic. People are making money. Cartoonists are making money. Some of the Kickstarters, we were just looking at one the other day. It has like 900 backers and $70,000. It's raised $70,000.
Yeah. Well, you are a multi-successful
Zoop. Thank you.
You are a multi-successful Kickstarter person, artist, mogul yourself.
On the Zardoz platform. If you're on the Zardoz platform, that's where you make all the money. But yeah,
you get to wear a diaper like Sean Connery.
You got a red diaper.
Red diaper comics.
Yeah.
So the industry wasn't all doom and gloom, and also, I know Jamar's got a happy story for 2022, which we'll get to. Okay. From that high point of talking about crowdfunding to a little bit of a sadder note, we want to talk about some of the great cartoonists we lost this year. Among them was Neil Adams and George Perez and Tim Sale, and who else we got? And it was talked about. Yes. So and Jamar, you also mentioned.
Aline Kaminsky Crumb,
Right.
Crumb's wife died. Who was also a cartoonist. Yeah.
That was just like 2 weeks ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
I know we talked about them on the individual episodes. If folks go back into the archive, I think at the top of most of the episodes, we try to spend some time talking about it. I know Neil Adams and George Perez passed very close to each other, so I think we talked about them at length in that episode. But sad. I mean, there's a whole generation. Oh, Carlos Pacheco. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so many. It feels like a kind of end of an era almost. That silver age is almost gone.
Yeah. And well, I think the thing also is Tom Palmer, who was such a great guy, and I was so fortunate to get to know him a little bit and work with him, and he was such an awesome guy. And when people of your generation begin to pass, it's sort of like everyone knows your grandma and grandpa are going to pass on, right? So the older people, even though they seem like they've been around and they're going, it's still a shock when they go. And then when it's more of a shock when people of your generation start going, I mean, Jamar and I experienced that with Mike Winkle passing, like 2008, I think.
Yeah, something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, and we were just talking about that the other day, and it's so it definitely affected me when big time when both Tom and Adams passed, because Adams was my one of my major influences and heroes, and then so was Tom, and I actually got to know Tom fairly well, and so it was very sad.
So thinking about this very interesting fraternity that we all belong to as cartoonists, what do you feel, besides just the passing of a human soul, what do you think is lost when a cartoonist dies?
Their voice,
Mhm.
in the case of, let's say you take somebody like Crumb, or you take somebody like Neil Adams. They had such a strong, unique voice for a very, very long time. And especially someone like Neil, who really changed the industry. We wouldn't be drawing Batman comics the way we're drawing Batman comics today if it wasn't for him. And him and Denny O'Neil, right? I mean, there would be no Dark Knight. There would be, we would still be doing, the 60s era the smiling Batman, all those weird funny Batman comics from the TV show or pre-TV show.
Was that steeplechase Joker?
Yeah. Well, just like Pat Olive mentioned last week on the show, how seeing that Avengers 93, which I always remember that number, so affected him as a kid that it makes you want to be a cartoonist. And that was how it affected me. Seeing his work made me want to do what I do for a living, and was like the beacon, the Holy Grail, all those things, wrapped up into one when you find an artist like that who so affects everyone, just like Kirby. He was the other guy in the 60s that totally bent the industry to what he did, his vision, because he was so dynamic and so popular. And it's really a lot harder to do that today. It's much harder to do that today.
I think about George Perez as a presence at conventions, and as kind of since such a big part of it. I know we just talked about the conventions, and I know, Mike, you're swearing off conventions possibly for a little while longer. But those in-person appearances and those meeting your readers and acting as a salesperson for your projects, he made it. George Perez made it. He gave me a gold standard. That's how you do it. That's how you make everyone who comes to your table recognize their importance. Let them know how important they are. That they are at your table meant the world to him. As big as he was, as many people as he met in a given year, he made every person. He gave every person that recognition.
He reflected back their enthusiasm.
Absolutely. And that was huge. So I think that's something that's lost. I mean, I love that their work exists. I love that I can go back and look at amazing stuff, and it makes me want to just put more out there in the world. But losing them as a staple, as these giants,
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. All right, so now let's talk about a little something that's going to get your blood boiling in a totally different way. We're going to have the rise of AI and the fall of NFTs. I think 2022 will be definitely remembered for that. I think you're going to be thinking about, what is 2022? Oh, that was the year when NFTs crashed and burned. And
now here's something you'll really like.
Terminated.
Can we go back to talking about the people who passed away?
Terminated.
So yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time, was the last episode, talking about AI and art and how that's all just kind of crashing up against the rocks, and just everybody has an opinion. I feel like people are starting to kind of I don't know, take sides in a weird way. It's something I didn't think I'd see, because there's kind of pro and con.
Well, a lot. But speaking of pro, a lot of organizations have come out. In fact, the Society of Illustrators said today that they will not be using or not accepting any AI generated art in any of their shows or anything like that. Some editors I saw were saying that they have already started receiving a AI generated art for pictures for books. Nope, not going for it, not buying it. If you send it to, I think one editor even said, if you send it to me, I will make sure that that you never work in this town again. I think Claire Wendling on her Facebook page linked to organization that's put together a GoFundMe to hire a lobbyist in Washington, and they had it all broken down of how much money they needed to be able to hire this lobbyist to go and lobby Congress, which of course is what all the big media companies do. That's what everybody does. You pay these people, they go and lobby, get they work their magic, and lobby to get some legislation put in to fight AI, which I imagine, as I think talked about before, it will probably be something like ASCAP in the music business, where they will in other words, you can probably opt out, or you have to pay a license to that artist in order, and then you get your 0.0000000%. But they'll do that, and then I also think that it's a fad, and some people are going to do it, but after a while, maybe that fad will kind of fade away. The magic, the novelty of it, maybe is already sort of wearing off, I think,
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying a little while ago is, when we saw kind of like the bubble up, and it's not the same thing, I understand that, kind of like the bubbling up of clip art, Print Shop Pro, hand
Comic
holding
Sans.
comic stands, comic book maker you can get in the spinner rack at Office Depot. I think it's going to kind of have its minute, and then I think it'll kind of fade out, like what Mike is saying. I think that is going to happen. It's a hot button topic, and I think you should take it very seriously. But I think it's not going to be as hot.
I don't think. I was thinking about this the other day when I was talking to some younger friends.
Younger friends,
young artists, coming up.
Yeah.
That I think AI will not make you want to be an artist. What makes you want to be an artist is you look at Neil Adams, or you look at George Perez, or you look at whoever your favorite artists are, and you go, I want to be like that. I want to be like that person. I want to have those superpowers, right? And I don't think, looking at AI, you go, oh, okay, yeah, that looks kind of cool. But I don't think, if you're not a hobbyist, like somebody who does it on the weekends, I don't think the hardcore people who have to go through all what you have to go through to be a professional, you may embrace some aspects of that for your job, depending upon what your job is. But I don't think what made a Neil Adams is going to come from AI. And I don't think it would not have made me, when I was 15, 16, want to be AI. I wanted to be Frank Frazetta. I wanted to be Neil Adams. I wanted to be Jack Kirby, and Mobius. I don't think you get the same kind of inspiration. I think what you get is like that guy everybody was beating up on last week, who said, "Hey, look, I put out my AI book. I just did it, in a day, and the computer wrote it for me, and then the computer drew it for me. Isn't it great?" And everybody goes, and throws tomatoes at him. I don't think it will make somebody want to be Charles Schultz for 40 years.
No, and I do appreciate people taking away the financial incentive to use it, and I like shaming people who use it. I'm still a big fan. I know I said that was my first take on it. Shame them. Shame them. Because again, the cat's out of the bag. This technology exists. We just hope they could do it ethically and not rob from anybody. That would be nice for once. It'd be nice to have one aspect of art where artists aren't being robbed.
Well, Steve, why don't you touch on the NFT show business real quick?
Well, it was a I'm sure everyone knows what they are, but they were having a heyday at the beginning of the year. They're all tied to their value in cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrency requiring the blockchain, and all secured by tons and tons of computer power, and all that computer power, which is what facilitates their security is what, people are measuring in, the amount of acres of rainforest that are destroyed. It's bad news to be involved in it environmentally, power wise, and all that stuff. And that really was the kind of main crux of the argument against it. Yes, it was the NFTs were procedurally generated AI-ish artwork or conscripted, very cheap labor produced illustrations, which were these images were associated with the minted on the blockchain. Everything costs energy to do, blah, blah, blah. But the markets that supported them have floundered. And the people who Beanie Baby style shot the price of these things up, all of that seems to have collapsed. Not to, I know the former president has recently released his own set of indescribable pieces. But still, the NFTs were shamed out of existence, basically. There's nothing technologically stopping people from minting new NFTs and crypto and all that stuff. And people have talked about new iterations of crypto being less energy dependent, but then they become less secure because the security is based on the energy dependence. But there's also some wonderful video. If you want to see all about NFTs, it's a video by Folding Ideas called The Line Goes Up. And it's like an hour, but it's a breezy hour. And worth checking out by a YouTube channel, Folding Ideas, and it's called The Line Goes Up. I'd recommend folks check that out. But this is also the year that they kind of cratered. I think at this time last year, we would have said, this could be a thing. And as of right now, it looks like it is not. Whereas AI a year from now, we might still be talking about it.
I think AI will always be around. I think what will happen is certain industries like concept design, things like that, will be probably more affected, and low end publishing will be affected. But again, this week there were several companies that said, no, we don't want to use it, and we're not going to use it. So I think because that happened last week in a big way, while people are still concerned, I think that they feel better than they felt the previous week when it seemed like, the sky is falling. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
Now people think, well, the sky may fall, but if the industry says, well, we really don't have any use for it, or minimum or qualified use for it, and if the professional organizations like Society of Illustrators go, well, sorry, we don't recognize that, we're not using it, then that's a pretty big blow.
Yeah, if talking about AI, if something like a Kickstarter decided, okay, you can't have a project that uses AI artwork, that would also be a big deal. Again, it's the financial incentive to use it. It's the, if Amazon says you can't post a book cover that uses AI, then you've removed the financial incentive to use it as a book cover for your new science fiction, Mike's new science fiction novel that he's writing on the side.
Yeah, I saw thing, but I wasn't able to. Came through my feed today, but I was out, and I wasn't able to follow through. But somebody had posted, I think it was on CBR or something. There was a story about somebody made an AI comic, but then they weren't able to copyright it. So
right.
That's one of the issues. Is that you go, okay, hey, you create your new fantastic Tolkien-esque, Star Wars-esque world, but of course it's all generated with AI, and therefore you can't copyright it. So
right.
That creates a whole other problem.
Right. Absolutely. And that's also some news. I actually got the notice just this week that I finally filed for copyright of The Middle Age, the volume. I got my note back from the Library of Congress this week. That was exciting. I should have saved that. That's actually a highlight for the year for sure.
That's great, man.
All right. So let's, where were we on the, okay, let's go right into it. My 2022. So I got the copyright of The Middle Age. As folks might know, last year, there was a children's book that came out that was very similar to a children's book that I had done previously. And that got me into copywriting all my own stuff. And it took a long time for me to get the paperwork filed. And then it took them a while to approve it, but I just got it the other day. So The Middle Age is copyright Steve Conley. So when people start to swipe it, I can call the cops. And that's the main benefit of the copyright, is that as a lawyer explained to me, no matter who your lawyer is, it's going to be a fight of lawyers, which is basically, Alien versus Predator, and but if you have it copywritten, you're protected by the law, and you don't. It's not really up to the law. You're basically calling the police.
Yeah, the government is one of the cops.
Yeah. So it's a good reason to do it. It costs like $65. You mail them a copy of the book, you fill out the form, and worth doing, I think. So
Yeah.
in other news, was touched on, the last year I spent teaching myself how to do 3D modeling, and I picked it up fairly quickly. I took to it very well, and I'm currently working on a cover, which is for another TTRPG, a role-playing game book I'm doing. Again, I'm still it's all tangentially related to my webcomic. It's set in that same world, but the illustration is made up of every time I needed reference, I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a model of a figure that's being hit in the head and being thrown back. I'm thinking very much like the Frazetta, Buck Rogers fighting cavemen on top of the edge of the cliff, that beautiful Frank Frazetta illustration. But I'm kind of have that kind of motion, and I'm just 3D modeling these figures until it feels like they're being impacted. It's turning out great. I will share it at some point. Maybe we do another process video in the coming year.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But so I did a Kickstarter to make minis.
Hold it up, Steve. Put it up to this. There you go.
I got some reviews from. Let me see if I can make my camera behave here. Advanced, autofocus off, zoom.
Yeah,
so
look at that.
This is just a 3D print. The actual minis that were a casting company did are even more detailed. And I'm getting wonderful reviews. This Kickstarter just got finished fulfilling. And now I've got this book, which was also produced. Again, this is an illustration. It's a 3D model of the figure I made. And then I 3D modeled the things in the environment and then painted over them. And the book just came back from the printer with a little spot varnish. And
that's beautiful, Steve. Great job.
Yeah. So still, comics are my life, and I love that I'm able to also create these other projects. And I think that's what 2022 was. It was continue to work on the Middle Age, continue, expanding into this TTRPG space, learning to 3D model, learning how to paint. I didn't know I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly just this bullheadedness of I'm just going to work on it. Spending a lot of time on Twitch and getting encouragement from that audience. That was a huge step.
Steve's Twitch is amazing.
And well, even if it's not, only a handful of people are there, but they're all like, rooting me on. It's like the mile 16 of a marathon. It's not the high point. It's not the finish line where everybody's cheering. It's more that's that cup of water along the way, and they're all
somebody's still throwing water at you.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so being in that environment has been great. And I didn't know I could draw.
No, you've had. I feel like you've had a banner year creatively, and that's just from the outside looking in. Like, you seem excited, you seem enthused, you seem energized every time I see you, and I think that can't be understated. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel really good. It's I had a very good 2022. I'm certain. I know for sure there were it wasn't all rainbows, but it was very positive year.
And also, don't forget, Steve, you came onto the show.
Yeah,
that was for sure. That was a big deal too. I was gonna be watching you guys anyway, so it's this. I might as well be talking. This has saved me a lot of typing.
That's great. And again, like I just said, Steve, his Twitch channel is great. I thought I was doing something, and then I started hanging out on Steve's channel. I was like, yo, how'd you make this look so good? Like, he's got he's got orchestral music in the background, and there's like blips and bloops. Pause. It's amazing. It's good stuff. Everybody should go join Steve's Twitch channel.
Yeah, if folks want to check it out, it's twitch.tv/Steve Conley. And I'm there Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 8. And it was 2022 was a solid year. But I've got, I think we're talking about at the beginning of next year, we're going to have a looking ahead at 2023. So I won't jump the gun and start talking about that. But 2022.
Put that in your pocket. That's right.
I learned a lot.
Very cool.
So let's talk about Mike. Mike, How was your year?
It was a year. It was a year for sure. I didn't talk a lot about it, but I did have some health issues this year, which are resolved in a positive fashion. I had, in fact, I just had eye surgery in September because I had a retinal bleed in my left eye, which basically meant from about April until September, I couldn't see out of my left eye. And I could see light and shade, but basically it was just so full of blood that I couldn't see out of it. So I went in and I had retina surgery, and my doctor was, it's just, again, people always say, I saw my neighbors today when I was leaving the house and we were talking. I say, people always say, oh boy, I want to go back and live in the old days. Things are so much better. And it's like, no, in the old days, they wouldn't have been able to do that surgery and save the vision in my left eye.
They
Days,
put a leech over your face. That's
right. It's like, oh, the leeches ate his eye. Shit, that wasn't good. Damn.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So I was drawing my strip. It's like basically drawing with one eye closed. But it's also amazing how your brain adapts to that. Like at first, it's sort of troubling and it's uncomfortable, but then after a while, your brain goes, "Oh, okay, that's just the way this is now." But then it was like so weird when my vision was restored, like everything was 3D again.
Wow.
Right. Everything was, like you don't realize how, not necessarily with drawing, but everything else, if you go through the life with one eye closed, it does make your world smaller, right? If you open your eye out, suddenly the world is twice as big. So yes, thank you for modern medicine and amazing doctors. So that was a big thing. I had a bad infection this year, kind of similar to what Neil Adams had, but fortunately, it did not take me out. So so I had my two buddies, Scott Cohn and Brett, jumped in and did the strips for month and a half until I was able to go back and start drawing. So yes, that was not, it was not a good, that part of the year. So it's like the middle of the year was not good, my summer was not good, but now we're back, been rolling away on both strips. And I got my TeePublic store was up this year where you can go and buy my products of the Skull Kids. There's probably about 40 something images on there. And of course you can get them on coffee cups and t-shirts and everything. So it's a steady little trickle of, enough to go buy a sandwich, But again, that feeds into the whole idea that, if you copyright your work, you create work, you could find these other ways of generating income, and maybe it won't be a giant windfall, right? But you get enough little streams coming in, like even though I'm not currently producing the magazine anymore, I still get a stream of income from back issue sales and continued digital sales. So again, you string enough little things together.
That's right.
You can get chips with your sandwich.
Exactly. It's like you can get a soup. you can get soup and a couple croutons.
Oh,
that's soup money.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, 22 was was mixed. You find out when you have something really bad happen, you find out how good your friends are or are not. You find the people that are in your corner, like Jamar and my friend Scott and his wife Marjorie, my friend Steve. You find, my family. You find the people who are really in your corner, and so that's also a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. You drew more comics with one eye than I did all year.
Well, yeah.
What a flex.
Yeah,
one eye tied behind your back.
That's right.
Yeah, and I have big plans for 22 that we can talk about. I'm structuring that so we can talk about that when we come back in January.
So that'll be our New Year's resolutions episode.
That's a tease right there. That's what that is.
I love it, and I'm glad you're getting up, Mike. Pause.
And now let's talk about I'm just gonna hold this up. Apropos of nothing.
What's the new cartooning language? Every young cartoonist draws somebody going like this.
What? Draw your character like that?
Well, yeah.
That's the reverse Sue's pose, I believe it's called.
Oh,
that's like the yoink. Yeah. So I had a pretty interesting year, you guys. Thank you, Steve. Look at that! It's so thick with 2 C's. So this was the year that my first volume in my Scholastic Graphic series debuted. The first book came out, Leon Extraordinary.
This is your year.
Is it? I don't like calling years. I don't like calling years. I don't like calling years. But it was a pretty good year for me. Just shunting my brain into a different way of thinking about what I've been doing all these years and being in this new space with Scholastic and doing promotion. Basically, I started doing promotion at the beginning of the year, like the middle part of the year. So I'd say like at the, what was it, like April, around April or May, I started doing early promotion for Leon and got on a plane, the first time since the pandemic, and went to Texas for a
because that's always where you go when you're on a plane, right? All planes go to Texas.
Like all roads lead to and that's where all my exes are also. To the Texas Library Association conference, where I found this really excited group of people that love books. And, the world will tell you that nobody reads. I'm here to tell you that is not true. Librarians and teachers and educators of that stripe and booksellers and book lovers are a real thing, and they're very vocal and they're very excited. And there was a groundswell of support for Leon. I was doing promotion with my advanced reader copy of Leon Extraordinary, which I think 10 pages were in color. The rest of it was in black and white. And people were like cherishing that, like I just gave them the new book, So from there, it just kind of like went out.
The stone tablets of Leon.
Yeah, and I got to be in a space that I wasn't used to, and I almost felt like I was starting over in a really weird way. Like everything that we know is different in this water. So it's great that I came in with like all these experience point levels, but I changed classes. So I dual class Steve Conley. So being a great beard and knowing how to talk to people and be engaging and all those things, I think were really helpful for me to be in the space that I am. And I don't know how you could do this being like 24 and just out of school with that kind of like, I don't know, the eyeballs and the light on you, and just like there's pressure, there's a very real pressure to being in a space like this, but it's all super exciting. So then, like, all of that kind of led up into October, where we debuted Leon Extraordinary. Leontober was a thing that
Yes.
we had. I got a lot of amazing illustrations. Mike did a Herculean lift of Leon art. And I thank him so much for that, and he just did fantastic world building for me. One of the things, and I'm sure Steve, you could talk about this. It's like you spend so much time with the character, and you kind of like you keep trying to turn the thing and find a new thing, and then it's always cool when somebody else kind of like lays their hands on it and gives you a whole different idea of like, oh wow, I never thought of that. That's really cool. So like that was really fantastic. And then probably one of the most exciting parts of the year was going to schools, because all of this year I had been doing all these things with like booksellers and librarians and English teachers. But and at San Diego, which was probably another banner part of not getting COVID, but going to San Diego and being and doing a Signs of the Scholastic booth and just seeing the energy. Everybody was so excited, and I got a lot of love. People were excited for me, which was great. People reaching back from early in my career, like, "Oh man, this is great! Everybody's so excited." But going into schools and getting to talk to kids and having a kid hug your book and say, "This is great. When's this is great. Where's the next one?"
Right.
Changes everything. You know what I'm saying? So, but no, it was a great year. There's more to come.
How many little cartoonists did you make this year? You inspire this year? Future cartoonists.
I don't know, man, but you know what? That's what it's about. And I think I found I quit my day job, and there was a part of me that had always felt, not, I don't want to say imposter syndrome, but always felt, because I'd always been in company with all of you big timers, and I was the only guy that had a day job that whole time, and I always felt like I was kind of splitting everything down the middle. But just the fear of that is over, because I'm busier than I was before. I'm so busy, you guys, and it kind of shocked me. I thought it would. I'm sure there was going to be a lot going on, but I had no idea how much.
Well, you probably spend more time, at least at this point, promoting than you do drawing. Or
Yeah.
we were talking about that. How many you're flying here, you're going there, you're talking to these people, doing that. I mean,
yeah, it is definitely beyond full time.
you're on the junket. You're on the press junket.
I got the junket.
And the idea that you're on such a larger stage than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, publishing self-publishing a comic, you're thinking, okay, man, it'd be really nice if I sold 5,000 copies, and maybe 2,000 of those would find themselves in the hands of readers. You're going out to so many people.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. And there are some thank you. And there are some really cool parts of this where, like, I'm doing these things in volume that I hadn't been used to. Like, there's some images on Facebook where I'm at a bookstore and I'm signing 200 copies of this book.
You signed your name more this year than you have ever signed your name in all years previously.
That is super true. That is super true. And also a really gigantic highlight was going back to the convention, which Baltimore Comic-Con was where I debuted Leon, the Extraordinary, in the comic circuit. And Baltimore means a lot to a lot of us. But it was really cool to celebrate this new milestone, because Baltimore debuted Leon, Protector of the Playground, and like it all kind of came full circle. I did the keynote speech at the Ringo Awards. It was wild. It was a really wild ride, but more to come in 2023.
And did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let me ask you this: when you sign your name hundreds of times, do you change the way you sign your name?
You know what, I have a little bit. There's a little bit more of a running, like a running line to it. I don't take the hand off the page as much as I used to. But I don't have a shorthand. It's all because I have all these syllables in my name. It's like zzz, 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 zzz,
Yeah,
zzz,
because I
zzz.
know some people just have like like like
No,
a wiggle, with a
no.
wiggle with a couple thingies coming out of it.
It's my
You're like,
favorite.
NIC.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot. But I can do it pretty fast. Plus, but no, it's all been really super. Yeah, this JRD says, "Is your signature just a J in the line like Arsenio?" No, I still sign the whole thing. And again, like just being in a space where people are excited to talk about this work and to talk to me about this work and people discovering it and in different ways too. Like having kids read it and go, "This is my favorite thing ever," and then having people come up and say things like, "Oh well, we needed this character," and then some people just go, "Whoa, wow, Scholastic." You know what I mean? So it's it kind of hits on a bunch of different marks. But yeah, I'm really excited about the future, you guys, and I'm glad that you all were able to share this ride with me.
That's wonderful.
You're
That's wonderful.
you're pulling us along in your wake.
But yeah, no, it's great. It's great. It's super great. So what else? What else we got, Steve Conley?
Well, we've asked folks in the chat to tell us about their 2022s, and we've got a few of those in here. And if you'd like to add yours to the mix, please do. Add them in the comments, and be sure to click the like and click the heart buttons and the subscribe and ring the bell and
All of that. What do they say in the TTRPG space? Hit the doobly doo.
hit the doobly-doo.
The doobly doo.
Yeah, or release the Kraken. I think that's what they say.
That's what we say on this show.
Oh, I've clicked the wrong thing. Here we go. We got some comments. We got Notorious JRD on YouTube says talking about 2022 that Kidlet, a member of the JRD publishing family, had a massive Heroes Con. Baltimore was good for me. Crazy but good year for shows. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see JRD at multiple events this year. It was fantastic. And yeah, Kidlet at Heroes Con was phenomenal. So fingers crossed for a even bigger year in 2023.
I'm also excited to see Steve take some of these producing duties over. You're doing a fantastic job.
I'm going to cut my own mic right now.
That's right. Cut his mic. Cut his mic.
And Bill O'Donnell on Facebook says the return of Baltimore Comic Con in all its glory.
Yeah,
I think that counts as a highlight for 2022. If you want to expand on that, please.
Yo, I hung out with John Leguizamo, y'all. It was crazy.
I want to clarify. John Leguizamo got to hang out with Jamar Nicholas. Everybody. It was crazy.
And why was he? Was he promoting something there, or was he just coming to get his Leon signed?
He has a book out.
Oh,
if I'm not familiar, he wrote a comic, and I don't know much more than that. Maybe JRD or somebody might know more about it. Ronaldo, I think, was hanging out with him. But yeah, he was there and was like a guest at the Ringo Awards, and he got up and did a bit and everything, and I got to sit next to him, and we kicked it all night. It was great. We took some pictures at the end of the night. It was fantastic.
That's wonderful. I think it was an Abrams publishing book. I think he's got a book with Abrams.
Oh, right. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
It's funny how many people are like, you're surprised, like they're like sleeper agents of comic book fans,
Mm-hmm.
like you go back in the day, or like Ed Asner, like who ever thought that Lou Grant was a big comic book nerd, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like it's so amazing now that comics have like, we're always there, but now it's like everyone feels free to acknowledge the fact that they like comics, and it's cool to like comics. It's cool to acknowledge comic books, I still think that that's part of the story of 22 is how deep into the culture comics and comic strips, comic characters.
It's real.
And we got just some praise for Pencil to Pencil, Eternitine. I think we were a highlight of 2022. I think that's fair to say. Learned a lot this year on Pencil to Pencil. That's pretty great.
I love
We
it.
had some amazing guests this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had, you know what? It's weird because we had a couple of dips in our production just because, you know, I was under some some extreme deadlines, and you know, we all had things going on. And I also think it's fantastic that sometimes we just have to kind of like pull away from the dock once in a while. And I'm glad that you guys are always waiting for us when we come back. So
Yeah, I love I mean, there's so many great moments, but I thought the Mark Schultz and Tom Yates conversation. If people go back and check one out, that would be a one I would start with. I thought that was a great episode. Any chance to get Mike and a guest talking about Al Williamson? It just always it immediately shoots off in all these directions, and it's like it just becomes this IMAX history lesson. I love it. I love it so much.
Oh, you know, and this would be nice. Maybe before we head out of here, ask everybody who's watching on the chat if they have a favorite episode of Pencil to Pencil from this year. As you know,
Yeah.
Again, we had some fantastic guests. Even
Or what else? What would they like to see next year? What more? You know,
cage fighting.
Cage. Yes. We all have to cut our foreheads with razor blades at the beginning of every episode.
More CGI. More CGI.
I really enjoyed our interview with David Peterson. That was great.
Yeah,
that
was good.
I thought our interview. They're always great. I'm never going to say one was better than the other. I think they're all great.
I love all my children.
I think talking to Tawheed was awesome. George Gant, like we had a lot of really great guests. Pat Olive last week. Anytime
We're always trying to mix it up. Get people from all corners of the industry of the world. We've had character designers, and
but that's what we're here for. Shelley says it's hard to pick one. See, because there's a creamy nougat to this podcast.
Right? Sorry about that.
Clean that off your shirt. That's right. So we're going to start wrapping it up. Steve, is there anybody that's got anything else to add?
We did get James on YouTube said, "I love the comic composition review."
Oh, that was
absolutely
that boot camp episode. Yeah, that was great. That was a good one.
I thought the live drawing, YouTube both drawing for Leon Tober was amazing. I love that.
That was like a sprint, man, trying to get it done during the podcast.
It was epic. It was epic. It was a hot dog eating contest. It was like just frantic.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe for next year we can have a hot dog or pie eating contest, a John eating contest.
Oh,
we got JRD added for his year of 2022 that was medically dubious, but his big event was turning his webcomic retrospective book into an unplanned autobiography.
There you go.
Which had an interesting effect on me. I wrote an introduction for it because anything JRD says. But yeah, it's worth checking out. If you got a link to it and can feel comfortable adding it in the chat, JRD, please do so people can find it.
So, Steve, can you throw this up on? JRD just said we should bring writers on the show, more writers. That's interesting.
Absolutely, I've been thinking about that all the time. But I wasn't sure how folks, because of the title of the show. I thought,
I guess a pencil's still a pencil, right?
I think so.
Or the people that tell the pencil what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the chat would be interested in hearing from more comic writers, or maybe even like editors or people from the other side of the office in comics. So maybe an agent or something like that. We can start mixing things up.
Yeah, I would love this. I would love all of that.
Okay.
And then we have this. I think this is key. A big event of 2022, and this all thanks to Mike. James on YouTube says, "I got back into applesauce thanks to Mr. Manley."
Applesauce,
right? I mean, no holiday spread is complete without a bowl of applesauce.
Applesauce.
As NFTs declined, applesauce stock took off.
Just to give some context to this, It was always a very funny thing when Mike would be on Facebook posting like meals, and there'd always be like a plop of applesauce next to something, and people were like tragically offended by applesauce on this man's plate. Applesauce?
Yeah.
I'm like, do you?
Yeah, well,
And
like
Mike-
you know, like if
And
I
Mike
make
got to defend applesauce, which I thought was great.
Yeah, you know, to me, if you have like a good Coney Island or you make a couple like hamburgers, applesauce is like a perfect savory and sweet is like the perfect combination.
That's right.
I don't know, like for people like being forced to eat their applesauce as a kid, you know?
Well, when I was a kid, applesauce had rocks in it, right?
Oh, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Chunky apple.
It's just
right.
like,
You
ew,
did-
mom, the worm's still in it.
You did not get the Mott's. That's right.
Well, we do have an upvote for finding out what an agent actually does. I think that would be great to add to.
All
Takes 10%.
right. 15.
There you go.
So, well, yeah, I mean, this is all really good conversation that we can kind of go back to the hive and mull around. Speaking of that, that's another thing. Like Twitter's on fire. That was another big thing that happened this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
the humanity! I imagine like that dirigible burning
The Hindenburg.
the Hindenburg. Yeah.
And people
I
jump.
feel like I still go into Twitter and I'm like trying to promote myself while the thing's on fire. It's like running around the deck of the Hindenburg handing out leaflets for my concert. It's going to be on the deck next week.
I love it.
Take this before you jump.
And David says editors like Chris Ryall and Scott Dunbier would be great. You know, I'll ask him. That'll be interesting. I haven't talked to Chris in a while. Thanks, David, and thanks again for your fantastic episode this year. We'll have to have you back on. And Eternity says, I will have to try hamburgers and applesauce. This is a concept. I
Wow.
think we're gonna have to, Mike. We're gonna have to brand you your own applesauce brand.
That's right. Move over, McDonald's. It's
Manly's
like
applesauce.
it's like In-N-Out Burger. It'll be like applesauce and burgers.
All right. But yeah, I think this was a banner year for a lot of us in different ways. I hope that you and yours have a fantastic 2023. That said, we're going to be off next week, and we shall be back at the strike of midnight. I love it. Oh yeah, look at that. We can keep going, but you know, if that's all right, Steve, take us out of here.
Well, thank you all for being here. You're all fantastic. We will see you in the new year. Our first episode of the new year, we'll be talking about 2023 and the plans and how we're all going to make 2023 awesome. Yeah, Mike's got he was teasing it. He's got a plan that we're all going to want to know about because we can all copy it on day one, and that will let us all know what to do for the next 12 months. But thank you all so much. You're fantastic. Again, please click the like button, the heart if you're on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe if you haven't. And
make your friends subscribe. Tell your friends,
Yeah,
I got you a stocking stuffer, and then send them the link.
that's right. I love it. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, the only way we're going to survive is we gotta get more people to know about Pencil to Pencil and jump on board. So I am ready to end us because we got to go back to work. You guys,
Let's do it.
I hope that you guys stay creative and
More coffee.
in the new year. More coffee, and don't forget, you guys, we're still in a pandemic, so you know what to do next. You guys, wash those curvy hands. So good. Get that living tribunal hand. There you go. I love it. All right, you guys, have a good one. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New